Well, it's great to be here, and this conference couldn't be more timely. I guess the way I think of it, if the 80s and 90s were the decade of Silicon Valley, and maybe the decade after that was kind of Wall Street, I think the next decade is about energy and the skill sets that you guys have, and the specialties in this room are going to be really needed in the economy, especially in this country for the next decade, that's for sure. And I look at where we are today, we're certainly, we're in tough times, but we'll figure out a way to solve the banking crisis. Might not be as fast as we all like, but we'll get there. And many of the other issues of the economy, we go through cycles, and each time you go through one, it seems like the worst in history because you're going through it. But we get through them. But the energy issue, the opportunity, and the problems that we're facing there are going to be with us for a long time to come. It's something that we're going to have to solve for many, many years. And so I think when you look at the resources that have now been allocated to try to solve this problem, the interest level, the education level of both the government and the public, there's never been a more opportune time to be focused on really rethinking the way we approach energy, and you guys are going to be right in the middle of that. So what I want to talk about today is a little bit of our view of one way that technology will participate, or could participate, in building a smart grid and why that's important. But it's certainly not the only answer. Smart grids are one area of investment and research that I think will be important in the energy equation, but there are lots of things that are happening on the back end, lots of things that are happening on distribution, and so it's a multifaceted opportunity. So we're going to talk about one way because technology is particularly important when you're talking about smart grids, because a lot of that exists today on what we can do, and we have some examples of things we're doing with some key customers and what's possible. So let me get started a little bit and talk about that. I think we all have a pretty good understanding and common definition of what a smart grid is, but certainly getting better information about how technology is being used from transmission to distribution and letting the consumer participate in making those decisions on how they want to consume energy. That technology is now surfaced. I'll talk about kind of why that happened now and not 5 years ago, not 10 years ago. A lot of things have happened on the technology side of this to make this possible. And, of course, there are a lot of neat initiatives around smart meters out there to allow this to be extended directly into the consumer's home. So this information-rich network will create all sorts of new opportunities for applications, for data, and for decision-making that never existed before. And I'll talk about exactly why now. So the problem we're trying to solve is certainly to be more intelligent users of energy, and the people who should be making that decision are the people who are actually using the energy because they know their daily needs, and if they had information, they would decide things differently, and that's been the issue. We conducted a study with a third party to kind of survey people to get their opinions on exactly what they thought about a lot of this and how they would react to having more information about their energy usage. So in our survey, 95% said they wanted detailed information on energy usage, that they would actually use it, read it, and consume it. 76% said if there were available some renewable energy for the home, they'd be interested in it. But the problem is, of course, most people don't have access to that information and don't have access to alternative forms of energy. So consumers want it. That would be different than if we have taken this survey even 5 years ago. Everybody's a lot more educated about it, thanks in part to the industry reaching out to people. And we've seen that once they do get the information, it's not widespread. There's not a lot of examples, but in the few areas where it has actually happened, they actually do use it. They reduce their energy consumption, and they change their behavior. And so we have enough evidence now that said this is an investment that's probably worth making, that if people have facts and information, which is usually the case in any area, they change their behavior because they have more intelligence to work with. So I also think you should look at it in a broader context. I think this is essentially transparency coming to the energy industry and the consumption of industry. This is one of the few costs that a consumer has where it's significant in size. It fluctuates each month, probably more than they would like in unpredictable ways. For most consumers, the pricing is unclear, hard to understand. They have limited choice and alternatives if they don't like the pricing and the fluctuations and the unpredictability of it. a little explanation of how their behavior affects the cost that they receive each month, and unreliable measurement. I have a home in New York City where the old houses, a lot of the meters are inside in the basement where they have to physically come inside the house, and if you're not there, they just kind of guess at it. And this goes on with my travel schedule for most of the year. I have no idea what I'm paying for. And so I think bringing transparency to some of this is actually a good thing. There's lots of implications, but consumers, if they have transparency, one, they become more interested in the topic because they feel like they can control the outcome a bit better. They can control their cost. And all of a sudden, a lot of people are interested in this topic and in smart grids. And they start changing the behavior, not on just what they consume, but what types of appliances they buy and looking for other ways to innovate to conserve energy. So having some transparency and having people feel some fairness and understanding about how this cost is administered and how they consume their energy and how they can change the outcome is a good thing for the entire industry. So why now? Well, I need to take a second just to talk about technology and kind of what changed on the technology side of it to make this possible. Obviously, we understand the advent of smart meters, but you had to have some tremendous changes on the software side of it, the types of things that we do to allow this to happen. So there are about 3 or 4 things that have changed. The big one is the ability to get software applications to talk to one another. That's been the issue in our industry for 30 years, and we call that services-oriented architecture. And what that means is we pretty much created a standard electrical outlet for software applications. So standard interfaces that can now be created to allow applications to talk to one another. And the issue of getting all these complex areas to work together has been bogging down our industry for decades. And so we created a set of standards around interfaces between the applications so you can now use those applications together and get them to talk together in a way that is somewhat predictable, so you get interoperability between applications that weren't originally designed to work together. So these are a set of standards that evolved out of the Internet over the last 10 years, pretty much universally accepted by all software companies at this stage, and that's the way software applications are being developed. That's a good thing for every single industry, but in particular complex industries that have lots of legacy systems, the older industries and utilities is one of them. It's going to be a great benefit. And so related to that is something called business process management. So once you have a way to combine applications, you can recombine them and change and model behavior between them. Essentially, you can model processes. And so we have now developed the industry, and in particular Oracle as well, a way to model applications graphically, make a change in the way the application is behaving. If you wanted to change a rule embedded in that software, you change it graphically and how the actual software changed. You couldn't do that before. So the ability to have these complex systems which took forever to change and very static, brittle systems that were a hindrance to innovation and advancement, we now have a way of dealing with that. It's not magic, but it's certainly a set of standards that can facilitate a lot faster innovation and changing these applications than we had before. So behind the scenes, we have a way of getting these data from one place to the other, getting the software applications to talk to another. There are lots of security issues as well when you start opening up the network. So that's essentially what we're talking about, providing that transparency and getting data to the consumer. Well, anytime you open up a network, as we found in other industries, whether it's banking or what have you, they have to be concerned about security. There are now a set of tools out there to deal with this as well. We thought about that ahead of time as a comprehensive suite of security applications to make sure that you feel comfortable opening up that data and those applications to your consumers. And then it's not just one set of applications. It's an entire suite of applications that will be needed to basically get data from the back end, present it in a form that consumers can understand it, and make sure that it's secure. It's a smart grid suite, and we'll talk about exactly what that is coming from Oracle. So we're the only company, I guess, in the software industry certainly that has formed an entire business unit dedicated to this industry. We call it the Oracle Utilities Global Business Unit. And we've made a few acquisitions, starting with a company called SPL, many of you may be familiar with, but we made others since then and then developed some applications. But all of these areas will be required to really roll out a smart grid over time. And whether it's from billing and load analysis to consumer data to customer interaction to bill service, all those things are important. And so we have a full suite of applications that we have built for utilities. We have a dedicated business unit that does nothing but service companies in this area. And so that is a benefit to us. It's been in place for several years, but we have a community of expertise that has been built up inside the company focused on this one industry that helps us identify additional acquisitions, it helps us identify new trends, and it gives us a focused set of people who come from this industry to work with our large customers over time to create new opportunities. And so this entire suite is put together with those same set of standards I just mentioned earlier, service-oriented applications, to allow these applications to talk through those standards and to third-party applications. So as we build our own application suite, we want to do the integration for you so you don't have to do that. But in addition to that, do it in a way that's open and standard so you can extend it to the other areas, because this is an ever-growing and changing area. There will always be new applications. There will be legacy systems you have to accommodate. There will be third-party applications you want to use. We understand that, and we have built our applications with that in mind. So what it looks like for us is we've created something we call Oracle My Energy. This is kind of the screen a consumer would see when they want to manage their data and their consumption of energy. And the more data you have, the more complex you can make the screen, or at least more data behind each one of these graphs and tabs. So we want to evolve this over time, add more information to it. But what we'd want to have is a portal, so it's nothing a consumer would have to install on their desktop. You want to have a portal that is either owned by the utility company or converged with multiple energy providers into a single portal that's run by Oracle, and we can figure that out over time. But this is actually not that hard to do once you have the data. The hard part is getting the data, making sure that it's consistent and clean and secure. Once we have that, we're pretty good at getting data to the right places because we manage data all the time. But this is what consumers want to see, something that's easy, lightweight. They can get quickly up and see what their consumption and usage is, and then make decisions on how they want to change. So the more data you can get by device and appliance, of course, the better. And the underlying sensors behind this will only make this more valuable for consumers over time, as they're able to drill down on specific appliances and see exactly what their usage is, make decisions about the time of day that they need the power and time of day that they don't. And this is what we want consumers to be able to work with. And once you show consumers something like this, once they see it, the light bulb goes off. Of course I would use that. I would look at that every day if I had the ability to change things and lower my cost and make decisions. I just don't have that information available right now. The other consequence of the smart grid is the enormous explosion in the amount of data you have to manage. So you're collecting meter data perhaps every 15 minutes instead of once a month. And you can see the escalation in data growth once people start to walk down that curve of the smart grid. So there's going to be a lot more data that's created. Fortunately, we're the world's largest provider of database management systems. That's where we first started. It's a core part of our business. It's not the largest part anymore, but certainly a very important part is managing data. And that raw ability is going to be even more important in this industry. So we've seen other industries go through this curve. When the banking industry, for instance, started to offer self-service on the web so people could come in and check their balances and see their checks that have cleared, they had a lot of back office systems that no one had ever seen. Consumers certainly didn't have access to it, and suddenly people want to see that every day. So it all had to be right every day. Balances had to be correct every day. Everything had to be perfect. And the amount of interactions that consumers have with these applications just skyrocket. Once they find out they can get information on their own, the data is going to increase exponentially. So we are looking ahead, and this is kind of where some of our research and development goes, kind of how can we handle this volume with grid computing, as we call it, to make the databases scalable across multiple devices, and so we can scale out, adding additional machines as needed. We've thought of that, and we're ready for this, but in terms of your planning, this is the type of escalation to expect. So we've built our smart grid suite with that in mind. In addition to the database, we have spatial technology and of course middleware for monitoring the activity across all of these applications and event processing. More broadly, if you look at what we put together in a little bit more detail, what we build is a complete footprint. So this is the solution map and looking at all the applications we think a utility needs based on our experience over the last several years, from the infrastructure on up through corporate administration, the analytics, and the core operational systems. There's a lot you guys have to run, and no single company prior to Oracle could ever provide all of this. And the reason we want to provide all of it is not just so we want to conquer the world, although that would be nice. It is that it does provide incremental value, the fact that someone can take all of these applications, integrate them out of the box at the factory, so you don't have to do that, but integrate them again in an open and standards-based way, and then start to build analytical applications that span all these different processes. And so the ability to roll out a utility in a box, as we call it, is now possible. That was never possible before. So it took us many, many, many years to get here, starting with the infrastructure, then the ERP applications, then CRM, and then a suite of utility applications that we both built and bought in some cases, and now provided the integration around that. That took 3 decades to do, but now we're there. And so we're seeing many utilities look at this as a recommended footprint and said, maybe I can't get there overnight because I have a lot of legacy applications. But there's a way to start. We build them a roadmap and say over 3 to 4 years, here's where you start, and here's the end game, and where we'd like you to get to, and we work with them over time. And we see some new utilities that have started, and maybe some emerging markets in Asia and other places where they come in and they need a footprint quickly. They take all of this, and they get up and running fairly fast because we're the only one who can do this for them. So we have made an investment in this industry. We certainly are committed. We think it's going to be a huge area over the next decade, and certainly important to our economy and to the country as well. And we were early in terms of hoping that this would be something that we should focus on. We can't focus on every industry this way. We did have to make some decisions and pick some industries, and this is one of the ones that we picked, and it's performing quite well for us. So in summary, we have systems at all levels of the application stack that a utility needs, starting with the data, with the world's most scalable database, most widely used to manage information for all industries. All the integration I talked about that's built around open standards, and then the decision support and the analytical applications to make better decisions on consuming energy. So I think this is going to prove to be an exciting time period over the next 5 to 10 years in this industry. We hope to be there along with you, investing, innovating, looking for ways to make more use out of what we have. The alternative uses of energy, the sky is wide open. We'll have to see where that goes, but we have lots of ideas and ways to accommodate that as well as part of this smart grid. So we're looking forward to it, and we'll be working with you over time. And thanks for coming and enjoy the conference.